Let's start this video by asking ourselves three questions. What is it that makes my services valuable? What accomplishments or characteristics that I have that stand out? And what accomplishments have I had that make me distinct? Now you must be wondering why I'm asking you these three questions. We'll come to that a little later. My name is Anjani Kuumar and welcome to my channel. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, do subscribe immediately. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Share it with your family and friends. I want our tribe to grow so that I can help more and more people. And if you have any questions, please put that in the comment section below. So let's start this video. Assume that you are sitting in an interview or you are sitting in an appraisal discussion and your interviewer or your boss who is doing the appraisal is asking you these three questions. What is it that makes your services valuable? What qualities or characteristics that you have that stand out? And what accomplishments you had that make you distinct? Now you will agree with me that these are not unreasonable questions for an interview setting or in an appraisal discussions. And that is the reason why I asked you these questions in the beginning of this video. We need to understand the importance of these three questions in your journey towards an 8-figure salary, and that is the reason I am making this third part of the video. These three questions are fundamental in defining the value of an individual in a corporate setting. But unfortunately, we don't take them seriously and we wait for an event where somebody else would ask these questions to us. And then we are left unprepared and we somehow try to answer them by whatever data that we could gather at that point in time. But in reality, what it means is if we are not taking these three questions seriously and we wait for somebody else to ask them to us, that means we are never trying to figure out what is the real value that we bring to the corporate with which we are working. Now, if you yourself are not trying to figure out the real value that you are bringing in, how do you expect the corporate to understand that value and reward you accordingly? In my corporate career spanning more than 2 decades, I would have conducted thousands of interviews and appraisal discussions. And these two events are extremely fundamental in defining your journey towards an 8-figure salary, your journey towards the Crore Club. And most of the time, what I've realized is people are underprepared to be a part of these two events. They land up for interview, they land up for appraisal discussions without really trying to understand what kind of questions that will get asked to them. What are some of the questions, like the three that we discussed earlier, which can really help them define their real value in the corporate setting? If you're sitting in an interview, you have to speak about the real value that you would bring in to a prospective employer. If you're sitting in an appraisal discussion, you have to tell your boss what is the real value that you bring to the team, that you bring to the organization. And based on that only, either you will get selected in an interview or you will get rewarded basis the appraisal discussion that you have with your boss. But unfortunately, we are normally underprepared, and that's what I have realized most of the time. And that is one of the key reasons I decided to make this video, where I can make you aware about these three key questions that you must ask yourself and try to understand the real value that you bring in to your employer. Let's try to understand why most of the time corporate professionals are underprepared to face these kind of questions or these three questions. Now, the first reason is we are always more busy looking into the efforts that we are putting in. We are not bothered about the outcome. Now, these three questions actually make you think about the outcome. What we normally look at is, I'm working very hard, I'm trying to do everything, but we really are not very serious in trying to understand what is the real value that is getting created. What is it that is making you distinct? What is it that is making your services unique? So we are not very sure about the other part. We are only busy in justifying the kind of efforts that we are putting in. We are extremely busy, working very hard, trying to do everything, but not seriously trying to put together a pitch which actually defines the real value that we are creating for the organization. And that is where we go wrong. So that's a big problem that we are facing. The second thing that we also need to understand is because the corporate, since it's a collective, we tend to use the language of we rather than I. So most of the time, when we talk about any such event where one would have contributed, we generally use the language of we. We achieved this, we did that, we finally made it happen. Yes, it's great to have a collective feeling and try to define it that way. But what you also have to understand that ultimately when you're sitting in an interview, it's you, the individual, who will get selected, who will be offered that job, who will be given the kind of salary that you want to achieve. Similarly, in the appraisal discussion, while it's good to have that collective approach, but ultimately the person sitting in front of you is going to define your performance, your salary, basis the data that you are submitting. And this is one challenge which again I have seen multiple times. In fact, in many times in interviews, I had to tell people that fine, collectively as we, you are saying you achieved all this, but what was your role in that? Because unless I understand your role, how can I decide whether I want to employ you, whether I want to give you the kind of salary that you want? And that is where we have to understand the language where you are looking at the individual, you are trying to define the value that that particular individual is bringing in, that value which makes him or her distinct, that value that makes him or her unique. And that is something which is extremely important, which we normally are underprepared about. The third aspect that I want to talk about is something which I'm submitting in front of you with all humility, because I also went through that kind of experience when I was at the peak of my corporate career. Most of the corporate professionals, successful corporate professionals, have a highly overrated view of themselves. Now, typically when you are going through that wave of success, it's quite natural that you start believing that you know it all, you are very good, you should be rewarded, you will always be successful. But there's a problem with this approach, because it actually makes you blind towards the areas where you are not good at. And that's the reason you tend to start believing that whatever you will do, you will become successful till actually you hit your first failure. And that's when the problem starts. Because when you hit the failure, you're shattered. Because in your mind, you always believe that you will be successful all the time. But then you hit a failure, you get into a problem, and then suddenly your whole egoistic view of yourself, your view about yourself where you think that you can't be wrong, gets shattered. And then I have seen a lot of times, I have coached a lot of people, it becomes extremely difficult to help such people come out of that kind of situation and again get back on the path of growth and success. So one needs to be extremely careful about this particular thought, this particular belief, this particular view that one would have of himself or herself when one is experiencing great success in his or her career. Now let's come back to the three questions. The first question says, what is it that makes my services valuable? Now this is a very fundamental question, right? We all need to know, because ultimately if a company is paying us 100 rupees, what are we giving back against those 100 rupees? We need to know what is the value that we are providing. So it's not a wrong question, right? But what we have to really try to justify is the value that we are giving back, the output that we are giving back against those 100 rupees has to be clearly defined, has to be quantified. Because it can't be just said that I'm putting in my best, I'm putting in a lot of efforts, that is not sufficient. So that's where we must work towards defining that value that we bring to the company. The second question is, what qualities or characteristics that make you distinct? Now, why it is important to answer this question? Now, I will take you back to the first part of this video series, where I told you that all the corporates are organized in the form of a pyramid and everybody wants to reach the top. And there's a rat race which is going on. Now, if you are not distinct, if you are not unique, how would you get the chance to move towards the top? Because ultimately the corporate cannot reward everybody in the same manner. So to differentiate, the corporate would look for something inside you which is unique, which is distinct, basis which you can be rewarded disproportionately. And if you expect that you should be rewarded disproportionately, you need to be able to very clearly demonstrate to the corporate that you have certain characteristics, certain qualities which make you distinct. So it's very, very, very simple, but very difficult to do, because you have to really look inside, you have to look around and then figure out that what is that unique characteristic or quality that you have which will make you distinct. And finally, the last question. What accomplishments you have had that make you stand out? Now, this is hard data that you have to provide, right? This is data from the past which can substantiate your claim for being unique, for making the corporate see that you stand out in that large group of people, and you should be given that opportunity to move up and reach the top of the pyramid, the Crore Club. So there has to be a consistency in your performance. It's not that, at some point you have really done well and then the consistency is lacking and sometimes you're doing well, sometimes you're not doing so well. No. The corporate would look at the hard data to seriously define and see whether you are a consistent player or not. And that's where the decision would be made that if you are a consistent player, if you are continuously doing well, if data is enough to prove that you stand out from the rest of the crowd, you will be given an opportunity to move up. And that's why this question is extremely important. When I coach people, I always tell them to ask these questions every day to themselves. Now you must be wondering, every day? Isn't it too much? Would the answers change if I ask the same thing today, tomorrow, day after? That's the key. And that's the real checkpoint that you would have or you can create to make sure that you are making progress. Now, how does it work? If you are asking the same questions, the same 3 questions that I told you every day to yourselves, yes, every day the answers would not change. But if the answers are not changing over weeks and months and they are remaining the same, if you are not being able to give enough examples of what value that you are providing, which is different from what you used to provide earlier, what characteristics or qualities that you have developed over a period of time which is unique, and what are some of your accomplishments which are again making you stand out. Now you have to keep adding to your accomplishments. You have to keep adding to your characteristics, your qualities. You have to keep increasing the value that you are providing to your organization. And if you are not able to do that, then chances are that you will remain stagnant. And that's where I tell people that if your answers are not changing over month on month, that means you are stagnating in your career, and that's a very dangerous situation to be in. Because if you keep contributing at the level what you have been contributing in the past, your rewards would also remain at the same level. You can't expect your rewards to go up. So that's why it's extremely critical that you look at these questions seriously. You make sure that over a period of time, your answers are changing And that is an indication that you are growing in your career, you're not stagnating. And that's why it is critical for you to ask these questions to yourselves every day. And that's the only way you can ensure that your journey towards success, your journey towards an 8-figure salary, the Crore Club, is moving in the right direction. So let's understand it this way. If you want to earn more, you have to keep providing more value. If you want somebody to pay you more, you have to ensure that you keep giving more. And to give back more, you have to also ensure that you are acquiring more qualities, knowledge, skills, which can make it possible for you to give back more. This cycle has to continue. And if this cycle stops, then you will hit a bump in your career where you will not be able to progress further, you will get stagnated, your salary will not grow at the pace that you expect it to grow. And that's where the problem really happens. So we have to ensure that we keep repeating this cycle of more and more value addition, of more and more contribution that you are able to provide, the more and more internal growth that you keep achieving so that you can give back more. So finally, what I want to tell you is make it a practice, make it a routine to ask these questions to yourselves every day. Within a week, you will realize where actually you stand in your career. In the second part, the journey of 15 years that I showed you, where you hit actually a figure of 1 crore, you will really be able to put yourself at the level where you are by answering these questions every day. You would come to know what you need to do to ensure that your journey continues. And the last thing, what I would like to tell you is, when you are doing this analysis of yourself, be honest. Give the right answers. Come out of this whole belief that I am great, I know it all. No. The day you say that you know it all, your learning will stop, your journey towards success will stop. So do an honest evaluation of yourself by asking these 3 questions every day, and that will ensure that your journey is continuing towards success, towards the Crore Club. If you have liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Do share it with your friends and family. Let's grow our tribe. Let's bring in more and more people into our group so that they can also be a part of the journey towards success. If you have any questions, put them in the comment box. I'll personally answer them. And I will see you with the next part of this video. Till then, thank you very much.